Welcome to our weekly United We Stand sessions. I think we've been doing this for a couple months now. And what a variety of speakers we have. I'm Christina Tobin with Free and Equal Elections. And we have a fellow friend here. He's actually in Mexico right now. I just got a little bit of a don't be fooled on the other side of that screen. A beautiful view. Boy, he's doing it right. Keith Mitchell, welcome to United We Stand sessions. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina.
Oh, it's like really cool. It's almost like I'm virtually reconnecting with friends, one session after another, and so many different types of backgrounds. You're definitely the first of its kind. You anybody that will go to your website, I'm looking at keithmitchell59.com, will learn that you were a former NFL player. Looks like Texas A&M and New Orleans and Jacksonville. Is that correct? You played
Yes, one
for
more team. I played for Houston as well,
Houston as
a year.
well.
Yes.
And, Keith Mitchell here has gone from pro football player into yoga, mindfulness and practicing and healing. A very rare thing that I have found in, in the professional world. And maybe it'll become a little less rare in the future. Keith, please introduce yourself to our audience and let them know a little bit about you and your background for those who have not met you yet.
Yeah, yes, definitely. As you mentioned, Texas A&M is where I basically started. Even before that, Garland, Texas. So for the people from the Dallas area, Texas or no Texas, had an idea of manifesting something greater than myself, or just an, an idea, desire that I could put out into the universe and say, hey, I want to accomplish this. I did that as this young kid, not even knowing what I was doing. And I landed at Texas A&M, and also it took me into the National Football League. And there I played 8 years. I was all pro at my position. I played linebacker, which is like the quarterback of on the defensive side. And ironically, 6 years in New Orleans, Houston 1 year, then Jacksonville. And Jacksonville is basically where I started what I do now. It was my transition, not really going willingly, but I had to suffer the consequences of all the hitting that I had done and the bruises and things I had done with my body. So on one particular hit, playing the Buffalo Bills, I end up on my back, and I'm in this position. In yoga, we call it shavasana, and in this posture, you're like in the most vulnerable position there is. And I had never been in this situation, and not only am I in this situation, I got 80,000 people watching. I got millions watching on television. So I'm in this situation, and I'm like, wow, like get me out of here. This is so embarrassing. And I was later diagnosed with a spinal contusion. My right side of my body was paralyzed. Through the process, I learned conscious breathing, and I began to use breathing as a tool mechanism. And through that process, as I see it, it began to allow me the developmental aspect of just processing things. It began to create an emotional maturity through that process. It began to create a whole developmental aspect of me that I had never considered. So through the transition of chief to athlete, and a lot of times we do take on these roles, and we never lose these roles, but I always say fortunately and unfortunately, or unfortunately and fortunately for me, I was able to transition to another role, and that's to be more human. And through the human component or the human construct, I have the capacity to be an athlete. I have a capacity to love. I have a capacity to do all the things that I want to do, but they don't define me. I'm more than that. I'm greater than that. And so through that process began to be the spark plug of what you see me getting my hands into all over the place. So it's been a great journey.
I, as a person, I'm really big on overcoming the odds, and I feel we're, as individuals, all dealt different cards, different challenges. How can you compare which is more challenging than others to each other? Though yours is really at the top, I must say. I don't know if there's much of
Well,
comparison, but we grasp onto the good things, right? And I think, you make that choice and train your mind to become stronger, to grasp onto the good things. You overcame the odds and going from being paralyzed for 6 months from the neck down to I think you had met a yoga teacher. What was her name? Uribi, Dr. Uribi,
Uribe
uh,
was my
taught
doctor in
you the
Florida. Yeah,
conscious, yeah, that taught you conscious breathing. Was that when you were in a paralyzed state, or when was that?
yeah. And there was multiple paralysis going on for me, not only in my body but in my psychology. The victim state. Why me? The doctors had given me and diagnosed certain things about me, saying you may not walk again, you may not run again, all these things you may not do again. But I'm like, who are you to tell me what I can't do? Who are you to define my reality for me? And it's like I wasn't going to accept that. I never accepted mediocrity in my whole life. So I'm not going to start here. In particular, when the game is really on the line, my life is on the line. So a nurse, Dr. Uribe was my doctor, but a nurse there in Florida, she talked to me about conscious breathing.
Oh.
And so on the inhale, the diaphragm pushes down. On the exhale, it pushes up. And as you mentioned, about 10,000 breaths a day we take. So through this process, we have an opportunity to provide this chi, this prana, to the organs that need it, which is a healing mechanism that we can implement in our day-to-day practice to allow us to be more intentional and less reactive.
And through that conscious breathing, garnered the blood flow, oxygen, and healing for yourself, right?
Yeah,
Implementation for
yeah.
life.
Yeah, because the areas that get stagnant are the internal organs, the liver, kidney, the intestines, the colon, and things like that. What moves naturally, if you notice, a lot of people have a shallow breath. The heart, lungs, they move naturally. They don't need your assistance. But what begins to be stagnant is, like I mentioned, the internal organs. So when we can give that prana, that chi, to nourish the body in that sense, we allow a whole healing component. A whole healing component becomes available to us just simply with that simple understanding.
Well, Keith, you don't have to answer now, and I didn't plan on this, but while I have you, I do invite you to have or gift, offer a yoga meditation class or session on United We Stand sessions in the future if you would like. With the
Oh, I would
beautiful,
love that.
we'd love to
Yes.
have you back on sooner rather than later. I know we have Tomasi out here in the area where we're at. It's going to do some sound healing, I think, in the next week or two. So I'd love to have you back on to do that for the people
Yeah.
to help heal our nation.
Oh, that'd
Beautiful.
be great.
Wow.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, Jessica will help arrange that. Before I, move forward into your projects and things we created, I definitely want to dive a little bit more into your background. I met your briefly parents at Texas A&M. It was
Yes.
one of the annual United We Stand now tour. It's turned into a tour that we've had, and I could right off the bat, I wasn't surprised to hear that your dad is a military preacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. I could feel like the strength and the core. And I'm just saying, you are who you surround yourself with. And I felt that with your mother too. I mean,
Yeah.
what a strength, what a strong presence it was to just, I found myself, the smaller crowd there, but I felt gravitated
Hmm.
to sit next to all of you. So can you tell me a little bit more of your upbringing with your dad being a military preacher and your mom as well?
Well, definitely. I'm so grateful. I was gifted some really amazing people in my corner, my mother and my father and my sister. We, just like everyone, we grew up with the differences, and I'm so grateful that we've been able to build a more functional, healthy, loving relationship through the process. Um, I think I like to believe even a lot of the things that happened in my life, my transition, my approach to them, and our relationship began to be a lot of things that contributed to that. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and
Wow.
yeah, breast cancer at the age of 60,
Uh,
and through my process of meeting some really amazing teachers like Dr. Staby, and I was able to actually take her to Honduras, uh, and even before that, get her, into the whole regiment of the lifestyle of veganism. and my mother was cured in 3, 4 months. And that's a huge awakening right there in itself. And the people in my family could see those things. I mean, those are simple things that happen that happened throughout my journey. But like in those dynamics,
Oh.
it's a revelation, and you see it, and these things are unheard of in society. But when you see it firsthand and you experience it firsthand, it brings about a certain level of consciousness automatically. So through those processes, we've been able to really cultivate a really amazing relationship throughout my family, and I'm so grateful for them. My mother, actually, they just celebrated their wedding and the 45th wedding anniversary. Yeah.
If they're watching this,
So
congratulations, Mom, Pa. What are
yeah.
their names again?
My mother's Dorita and my father's Lawrence.
Dorita
But
and Lawrence?
Lawrence, yes, Mitchell, yes.
Dorita and Lawrence. Happy anniversary to you too, 45th. So, are you the only child too, Keith?
No, I have a sister. My
Okay.
sisters, we're 8 years apart. Uh,
I have a
yeah.
brother. We're 8 years apart. He's younger.
Oh wow, wow. Yeah, she's younger. She's
Oh,
younger.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you feel a closeness with her too? It's like an age gap. I'm with my brother. We always got along. I mean, it was just, I mean, I love him so much. So, I
Well,
mean,
through the process, we've been able to, like again, cultivate
yeah.
a relationship that goes beyond surface. I mean,
Mm.
you know, so much of my life was like at a different part of her life, so we never really like gained closeness when we were younger,
Mm.
but we've been able to cultivate a greater relationship now. Yeah.
Well, just curious, and more on a personal thing. You know, Dallas, you're from Texas, born and raised. Same
Hmm.
here, 16 years.
Oh,
Yeah, I was born
wow.
in Pasadena, Texas. So,
Pasadena. Nice.
uh-huh. And you were born in Dallas, right? Or
I was
from?
actually Tyler. I was born in Tyler.
Oh, Tyler. I know that place
Tyler,
really
Texas.
well.
East Texas, yes.
No joke, Sunday football, man. I can't even count. I mean, how many Sunday football gatherings we had in Texas when I lived there. Like it was
Hmm.
culturally the day that you come together, the Friday night lights. I know you mentioned to that
Yeah.
and family togetherness and inspiring with football. Um, just before again we move forward, you did taekwondo, huh?
Yes, yes, yes.
How many years did you do that for?
I did it from what is it? Middle school, all through middle school and some of high school. So martial arts. My father, he was into martial arts. My father, really, the toughness and that masculinity I really gained from him, that discipline. He wanted me to be tough. He felt I needed to be tough, so he did everything he could to make me very tough, and I think he succeeded. That's one thing I think he succeeded in. Yeah, making me tough. Yeah.
Okay, your mom would agree because you're like,
Yes.
I'm doing football. And I think you
Yes.
got into it around 13, 14. You started
Yes. Which is
doing
kind
the
of
foot.
late. Yeah, which is kind of late for footballers in Texas. They come out of the belly of the mother straight to the football field.
Boy, do they.
It's like, yeah. So that was actually kind of late. So I had a little learning curve to go through to be as good as everyone else.
Yeah. I kind of was listened to some of your other speeches, and you wanted to play so badly, and you're kind of on the sidelines at first, but you wanted your parents
Yeah,
to keep you in there, and you're like, I'm doing good, I'm doing good.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
give me a little
yeah.
more time.
I had to pad those stats. Yeah.
Yeah. I brought up taekwondo because having had gone to taekwondo myself for 4 years, I became a black belt around the age of like 10 to 12, 13. That art really taught not only discipline, but to come from a place of peace. Like, I mean, at
Mhm.
least with it was like, no matter how you defend yourself, but never any violence. Back to that MLK, nonviolent action. I mean, that's what I really took from Taekwondo. And it was probably the best thing my parents could have ever done. So it was interesting to hear that you went through that too. And um, your role with football. So, well, gosh, you have done quite a few things. The Light It Up Foundation. When did you
Mhm.
find, just digging through that more, when was it founded, the Light It Up Foundation? Is that a nonprofit? And what is it about?
Yeah, the Light Up Foundation, what I found initially, we were doing events and we started that probably about in '08, and then we shifted in another direction around 15. But I would do these big events, and then a lot of the proceeds will go to the children in the various communities that needed help. And then when I got into more of the teaching mindfulness and things like that, then I began to shift it in the direction of bringing a lot of the people in the communities that were doing the similar work together to educate the community to have an experience, whether it be yoga, whether it be nutrition, whether it be health screenings, meditation, massage, these types of things that a lot of people have never experienced. It was a way that we could introduce this to the community to have them be together. We would have the police be a part of it, the city councilman, the mayor, and things like that. And we started doing our biggest events that we've done were at the LA Coliseum. And so we would have like 10, 12,000 people come and raise a lot of money to help and benefit a lot of people. On top of that, bringing a lot of the community organizations together who had really never done much with each other, but it's a way that they could actually come together and not have to compete for dollars, but just come together and strategize and see how they can work together to do what they do even better in the community.
Yeah, I remember I think your first event at the Coliseum, you had about 8,000 people there. That is bow down. And I was with you on, like there was a previous venue you were looking at about like, they always have that food beverage thing. I've learned that with United We Stand, and like, I'm not going to feed people hot dogs. There are ways you can bring like outsider vendors and have choices, but good on you, because that's just like not even an option. So when did that start? When was Light It Up Foundation founded? Or is it more?
We started again in '08, and then we shifted into what we did, what you saw at the Coliseum around 2015.
Okay, that helps more with the timeline there. So wow,
because I was discovering myself too. I was developing as well into how I could contribute. It's sort of like when you go inward, like the idea of going inward and staying in, because you don't just exist internally. And this is what I'm so really excited about when I share this message. We don't just exist internally. We also exist in the external world. And the external world is just as much needing our attention than the internal world. And as we do it simultaneously, the same work we do internal to be better as humans and create this human dynamic is the same dynamic or same energy that we have to put into the external world to create this external world to live in, to be relatable, to be loving in. So it's a dynamic that sometimes we forget, I think. And it's just a reminder. Because the same investment that we go inward with is the same investment we have to put into the world, because we live in this world. And as you know, like no matter how spiritual you may find yourself or think yourself to be, but through the environment of COVID, it has us isolated. It has us in quarantine. And this is why, we have to contribute to this. And this is why I'm so excited to be here and share my version of this practice on your platform.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of live streams have kind of subsided and tapered off, and it's like we're just getting started. So we're in it for the journey, not the race. And when you say find your love, I love the Trevor Hall song. Something of like, how's the line go? I have it on the back of a t-shirt, but something in the love that he has to offer, but find your center. And my love is a reminder, he says in one of his songs, find your center. That's it. So beautiful. And that just kind of with what you said, I think we might have Trevor on in the future. So it looks like he'll do it. So, and I want to give kudos and credit out to John Nash of Natural Leaders Foundation. He connected you and I, and he is such a giver and a connector. And where is he now? What country is he in right now?
You can't keep up with him.
He's in Guatemala right now.
Okay, Guatemala.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Children and and all, but and he's trying to get DJ Kavam, ETEF, I think, on, and X of Earth Guardians. He's brought them on our stage with United We Stand as well. See you Boulder. You weren't at that one in person, but in spirit, I might have been the year before before, I think, or after. It's hard to say. Texas
But I know
A&M.
those guys. They're really good people. I really,
Yeah.
I love their work. Yes.
Hmm.
Tess, him and his
Yeah.
wife. Yes.
Yeah, he just did an event out in Colorado. A close friend of mine, Bruce Winston's the name he goes by, does a lot of work with We Are Change, but really beautiful network out in Colorado and shifting that in like a heart-centered, elevated direction. But yeah, Bruce and I were at Thrive Fest Hawaii in February, the first stop of United We Stand For this year. And we traveled the island a couple hundred miles and met with beautiful locals and stories
Hmm.
and came into the fest and all. But yeah, he hosted an event for DJ Kavam in Colorado, I think the last week or two. So
Okay.
that was neat to see, you know, and so it's just a beautiful circle of connectors coming together. So
Nice.
so in any case, Honduras, like well, gosh, where do I go? Before I go into Honduras, you talked about the meditation and the Light It Up Foundation, the events at the Coliseum that you've done. Could you dive into
Hmm.
greater detail of what those events and what they included? That you had 8,000 more, 12,000 people at. Was this a full day event? Couple hours? Like what was happening there?
Well,
I'm
it was just an
curious.
opportunity to bring the communities in one place and have them interact. And this is why the stadium made so much sense. I looked at the stadium as a container so people and their families could feel free to let their kids have the experiences and feel protected, still feel safe. And, whether it's been, like, again, meditation, whether it's been massage, sound bath healing, it was an opportunity to introduce these dynamics to the youth. I actually had the city council help. We would actually split the costs on busing 6,000 kids in. So I got the
Wow.
city to help me.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, 6,000 kids we would
Let's
bus
talk
in.
some more, Keith.
Yeah. Well,
That's
you got to just go to them.
beautiful.
You got to ask with persistence, and we got them on board, and it was really it's a good thing, and it's all around mental health. It's all around just health in general, and so it was just an idea that we could integrate not only the youth but also their families, their mother, fathers, to have an experience. So if it was yoga that you're into. If you didn't know about yoga, we had a walking run type event as well with it. So it's like in the area, then we had celebrities involved. So in the area of all that, we had, mindfulness, we had the meditation piece, we had the serving of healing and bringing that as an introduction to the population. And it's a great event. It's a great event. Yeah. And we were raising a
Beautiful.
lot of money that could help a lot of people. So.
And thank you for your work, and that is
Mhm.
inspiring and uplifting. You is it really the case? I almost need to see photos to believe this, but did you actually and maybe I think I heard it right in an interview, bring around 30 congressmen together on Capitol Hill for meditation? Did that happen,
Ah,
or was it a
yeah,
discussed?
we did the Congressional Yoga Association. So, and I was working with Charles Rangel at the time out of Harlem, and then
Congressional, all right, yeah, that makes more
yeah,
sense.
and then we had Tim Ryan, of course, who's an advocate of yoga out of Ohio, and so we were basically the Republicans, Democrats don't really do much together. So through the Congressional Yoga Association, we would bring the Republicans and Democrats under the Obama regime together to do a meditation before they would go sign bills and things like that. And so we had this one big class that I taught, and it was in the where they do all the interviews. You see they call it the tundra there. It's all known, but it's like we had like CNN, all the media outlets there. It was a pretty cool event, and we probably had hundreds of 100 people at least there in the congressional hall there, and it was just an amazing event. Right after that, they had to go straight to voting, so it was pretty cool to see. Yeah, it was fun, fun
Wow.
time.
I'll try to search that, or if you remember to send me a link, please do.
Okay,
I will.
I can send you the link.
That's it's I'm not really too excited with what Congress is doing right now. You kind of
Hmm.
the current reality right now is we are
Right.
being for the most part isolated, and the coronavirus and what Congress is doing and pushing through. I mean, particularly House Bill 6666,
Yeah.
6666, and disturbing
Without, yeah.
numbers. I'm an optimist, a
Disturbing numbers.
realist.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
I just, all I can say, and I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. I'll be aware, but I'm going towards the light. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, we're going to bring light. So I bring this up because I do foresee most, if not really every member, maybe excluding Thomas Massey, the only exception I can think of in Kentucky, Congress men, women being replaced starting in 22. And I do foresee those sort of candidates probably relating a lot, not just 30, but maybe like 435 relating to the programs that you do. So I'd be curious to see the 30 Congress individuals, what you did there. And I'm definitely, in any way, Free and Equal United We Stand can support the beautiful efforts that you do. You are a doer and multitasker, and you get it done. I really, really aligned with that sort of mindset and mentality and inspiration.
Well,
Such an inspiration you
well,
are.
I appreciate that, but the thing is that when I was in that role, I only saw myself as such, and like I relate to a lot of people who may find themselves being the attorney, who may find themselves being the accountant, the doctor. There's so many dynamics that we're capable of. We create the limitation, and so for me, when I've allowed that growth and development to happen, then reality of that creation began to take place. I don't want to sound so esoteric on it, but the reality is we're sitting on a potential that we limit with our minds, with our ideas about ourselves, about a lot of the healing that must take place in a sense that allows us to step out and be more than we allow ourselves to be. And for me, I'm so grateful for that opportunity to simply just acknowledging and using my breath as a tool.
I'm with you on that. I'm really really a huge believer, and I can't wait to go from like the electoral arena, which is really a duty for me in doing this. And the cards were dealt, and here I am. It's a role and a duty, but I'm really stoked to go into quantum physics and that direction, and physics, and
Yes.
in the future, and that mindset
Yes.
of like when I founded Free and Equal Elections back in 1998 now, so 12 years ago. It's kind of weird, but I could say the resistance, even from family, was like, "What are you doing? This doesn't make sense."
Right.
And it hasn't been until the last couple of years they're like, "Oh, this is great. You're doing this." And despite the distractions, not only in your head but the people around you, when you have that heart, that mind, that gut, and that's what you're calling to do it. Don't let any of
Yes.
that, in the way. And when you do it, like Alan Watts says in some of his, speeches, like, what if money were no object and you're doing what you love?
Yes.
You're going to attract people that are
Yes.
of like-mindedness. You're
Yes.
going to
So true.
eventually become an expert at that and get an exchange, a return, a way to live comfortably.
Yes.
So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and that even gives me an idea of like a lot of times just because you don't understand something, you don't belittle the next person. If you want to know more, uh, have a conversation, listen, like because really what we're dealing with in our society, in my opinion, is inability to have the tools to problem solve. You know, and you listen through problem solving, you hear the points, and you begin to figure out how we can make things better. Instead, we just hold to our opinions. Like and a lot of our opinions have no substance behind it. We have done no due diligence or little to none, and we have these opinions that we hold so dear to. A lot of it's conditioning, a lot of it's learned, and so we never get to the point of problem solving. And so this is another thing that I would imagine will help in, assisting in people as we're seeing new things proposed, like what you're so far ahead of the game compared to a lot of people. But it's the same dynamic of me as a child in Garland, Texas, saying, I want to play pro football. And the kids looking at me like, are you kidding me? Are you crazy? It's the same dynamic that's there. And so what we've been known to do is like, just because we don't agree or we don't have this vision, that we belittle them and we shame the people instead of building them up and let's develop this vision. And that's the new site. I think that's the transition that I want to see our population begin to go into.
I just a personal thing I've never really spoken publicly about. I can relate to you on the athletic side too, having picked up a tennis racket late on, as in like I think it was freshman year. junior year, somewhere in high school. It was like freshman year of high school right there. And barely made the tennis team, and took a situation where sometimes after practice, my ride didn't come for quite a while, if not before evening, or however the coach would take me home. But instead of, being frustrated about that, I was like, well, I'm going to make the backboard my best friend. And I would hit against the backboard because I was just grateful to be able to play. So I wasn't going to complain about any circumstances. That whenever the ride came, I was cool with that, understanding. And then it was like a year later, I got first in conference, went from barely making a team. I got the serve in just barely, got the most serves of, and to like bottom of the totem pole to conference. And then college, was offered, I don't know, like I think $1 million sponsor to go pro in tennis.
Oh, wow.
But I've never spoken publicly about that. But my heart wasn't in it to go pro, but it was in it for it to pay for college, and it did. So paid for most of college, and so it just, because for
where'd you go to?
The wear and tear on the body, I have to say, with your mom, you I don't even to tell you that, of all people, but I just could see foresight of my body and being where I am now, and pro is just not for me for that. St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota. Tennis coach Jeff Hallberg, beautiful coach. Love him so much. Still there to this day. So, so I can relate. You have your mindset on something. You go from being on the bench in football to like, pro. I mean, coolness. So you've worked with veterans. Can you tell me more about that in detail?
Well, veterans became really vital to me because when we look at football and I playing football, we had this idea that we were the warrior, and we were warriors to an extent, but we were not the warriors like the veterans who protect the line and with real bullets flying. And when I first went to the NFL, they were not ready to receive what we had, and so I didn't make that begin to be like the wherewithal for me. I went lateral, and I started building there. And so I started working with veterans, and we created a care plan with University of Rochester. I signed a deal with the CEO of University of Rochester to work with do the mental health piece using telemedicine to serve the veterans and do retreats even with the veterans. And it was this amazing opportunity. We worked a lot with Fort Bragg, a lot of the Green Berets and things like that. And a funny story is, because working with those guys, I mean, they're trained assassins. All they do is practice to kill every day. And so one of the most interesting things, so when you come to them and you talk about meditation, they're like, okay, well, if you're going to get me to meditate, well, first you got to prove something to me. So we're going to take you up into a plane about 15,000 feet, and then we're going to throw you out of it. And if you can hold that meditation through that, then we'll meditate with you. and I did it. So so I got those guys. Yeah, I did it, and I got those guys to meditate. So
my goodness. They just wanted to hang out with you.
I guess that was
they're like,
weird.
oh, you're strong enough for that. You're strong enough to be our teacher. You know. So, wow. Did you instantaneously say? Did you think about it? You're like, I'm going to do it. Just curious.
Well, I had to say I'm going to do it because I wanted them to meditate.
Yep.
And so, but after answering the question, I did have some like, Keith, what did you just say? Like we're gonna do what? But I'm gonna tell you, after the fear, and that's all. It's another thing about the practice. We have to, recreate this relationship we have with fear. Fear doesn't have to be my limitation because once I got up, I had this fear, but then when I jumped out of the plane, it was the most amazing experience of my life.
And my hope and my guess is for the veterans, having you help them with meditation may have been one of the greatest experiences for them too. So
I hope so. And
Yeah.
it was a great learning experience for me, and I still have a lot of association with the veterans. And we look to continue the work even going forward. I can't wait till we get some new people in office that are interested in mindfulness. More people like a Tim Ryan who can advocate the mental health issues such as what we talk about for his, the meditation, the yogas concepts and things like that. So it's a lot of amazing people doing great work with veterans. Um, and, you know, we need to make that policy, in my opinion. So I look forward to having more like-minded people in that sense in office coming forward.
Yeah, and definitely, definitely the sort of people that are not necessarily seeking to run for office, but are asked by their community and
Yes.
constituents. Those who are already active in their community, I foresee a lot of them being asked to run, and them seeing it more as a duty rather than a career. It's a duty
Yeah.
to serve and be okay with one cycle, because it's when you're doing it right,
Hmm.
you're not making big kickbacks of money under the table like many of the current people in office are. We see that. We see through that. And so, and I see a lot of those individuals having scientific, technological backgrounds too. Not all, but
Hmm.
left, right. You could be full on in the anarchy world, full on socialist world, or independent. I think is going to be the majority of the people that are going to run, and many that may use party lines, D's and R's. But man, I don't know. As consciousness rises, I think it's a bold thing to say, but I foresee parties fading away, and a
I
blockchain
hope
voting,
so.
a
I hope so.
blockchain voting ledger will support the independent candidates to break away from those party lines. But they're going to need to maybe use the party lines for a couple cycles. Our current president did, got
Hmm.
elected. And
Hmm.
so, and the good in that is more people are involved than ever. And he was actually an outsider that won. That's opening it up for an independent candidates movement. So I
Yeah.
foresee in the future. So never attached to a timeline though, Keith. I've learned. I don't say like it could be
Yeah.
22, it could be the next cycle, it could be a
Hmm.
couple dozen in 22, it could be all 435. Who knows? Or
Yeah.
434. Keep Thomas Massey. So, and alternative to surgeries. I'm gonna want to go a little bit into your book next, mindfulness playbook, but
Hmm.
more joy, less fear, more love. I want to dive into
Hmm.
that, but you're just not a big surgery guy. It seems like you within reason, can fix things. Ankles, hips, internally. How?
Well, we've just never tapped into that to ourselves that way. The relationship has never been cultivated with your hamstring, with your knee. For somehow we just took on that condition to say, okay, when I get hurt, well, someone's supposed to fix me, instead of really developing what you have internally. The bones are meant to regenerate, to regrow. This is how you can cut your nails and then they grow right back. Well, I mean, just like that grows, everything else has the potential to grow. We just have to learn how to feed it, fuel it to grow in that sense. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's just a revelation. Again, that human development that goes it's on so many different planes. It's on a conscious plane, which is awareness, but it's also on a physical plane. We have an ability to regenerate the kidney, the liver, cleanse the pancreas, things like this. We have an ability to regenerate cells that have disposition. And through our DNA, we have so many opportunities. It's just taking the time, realizing the investment to go internally to know more about you, and we tend to shy away from that for whatever reason. But I'm here to share with you that there's more that we can pull out of this. We're not just this bag of bones, as like you mentioned, Alan Watts says. We have more potential there, and it's just realizing it. So that's what I mean by that.
Thanks for clarifying. And it's like, I'm kind of diving a bit into carbon 60 and the mindset of like people are, it's just interesting. Parties and, and even maybe religion, I see a lot of control. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
purity, like, and more so in religion than parties, I think, but
Right.
political parties, that is, like, come
Right. Yeah.
together, let's have a party. That's a whole different thing,
Hmm.
which is what we're
Right.
going the direction with the United We Stand tour. So,
Hmm.
but in any case, it just, the concept of a religion and the control, and it's just interesting. We're a lot of us individuals that are in the religious mindset, particularly having lived in Bali myself over 3 years out of college, bought a one-way
Hmm.
ticket there and stayed. The Hindu religion, they believe in the afterlife.
Hmm.
What a corrupt government. In Indonesia, I mean, of course, here too in the US, but there were a lot more, I would say, in Indonesia back in '05, like almost proud of it, flaunting it. We're corrupt. It kind of hide it or try to, here in the US, but
Right.
that's not
Right.
working much longer. But, I found the mindset of Hinduism, we're all like, oh, it's okay the way it is now because the afterlife is going to be better. And it's
Hmm.
just like, it's just very interesting. I don't know. I just, I think there's such a, again, purity to it, and I'm all for what works for each individual, but boy, the
Right.
system sure does take advantage of it. So,
I,
um,
I so believe you on that. It seems like the place where they want to oppress the people the most, they have you thinking about a reincarnation, an afterlife, and things like that. So it gets people in a more of a comforting place when they are lacking essential tool, necessities in this current life. It kind of eases some of the pain or eases some of the things that they have to go through in this present life. I'm suggesting that we get the opportunity to live now and enjoy the fruits and the benefits of living right now. And I hopefully that does change. I'm all for people having a religion that works for them, meaning like, okay, if you contemplate your life and you say, okay, well, I started this understanding and taking on this way of thinking, and my life is progressing. I have more love. I'm more lovable in my life. But what I've seen is not really the case. It's like the more I believe, the more dysfunction I have in my life. So I do, and I collect the data of the Hindu faith or these various faiths. I do see a lot of similarities, again, of this control, of this idea of, in my opinion, the acceptance of things like oppression in this current state.
hmm. And it's like going back to like the carbon 60, and I'm like, what if this is, if we define heaven, what if this is actually it where we're at now?
There you go.
And
Yes,
what if we could
yes.
actually live a lot longer, where we could slow down the aging process and or reverse it, arguably through carbon 60? But with technology blatantly being intentionally suppressed by the system, powers that
Yes.
be, the monetary Federal Reserve, tied to the people in Congress, everybody in office and all, and just them squashing, 5,000 patents alone since the 1900s pertaining or related to
Wow.
free energy. It's
Wow.
super obvious that we are living in the dark ages, I
Hmm.
meant,
Hmm.
but all the more reason to fix it. And once
Yeah.
these couple hundred or so, Congress being key candidates are replaced, I think we're going to see evolution. We drop the R, we go right into evolution. We can really do it. And that, again, the John Lennon and love is really all we need is love, and the
Hmm.
nonviolent action messaging of MLK. And gosh, I was just kind of diving into the documentary, a part of it, of John Lewis, the other day, a civil rights
Hmm.
leader, the Selma
Right.
and March of Montgomery and Bloody Sunday, and hoping to have Bernard Lafayette, on a future United We Stand
Hmm.
sessions, another hero with that. But yeah, it just, oh man, it's gonna be a lot of work, but it's a lot easier to fix than we're brainwashed into thinking. Because
Right.
when we unite, two, three, whatever percent of the population around an idea that has a peaceful,
Right.
positive, solution-based direction, there's no stopping it when that idea
Right.
comes. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I so agree. And but the system is, you know, however, the system is very cunning, and they play chess, not checkers, and they have implemented a lot of things in play, mindset, wording, conspiracy theory, or these types of words.
hippies.
All these concepts that kind of create staples for people and make them, you know it's just, so we have to be aware. We have to do our due diligence. We have to have some knowledge even. And history is the greatest place that I've taken it in my personal life to see the times now, because this evolution has taken place. We're just not aware of it as such. Trump has been in office, and as far as I'm concerned, if you look at various presidents like Nixon, Johnson, even, I mean, so it's like this mentality, this dynamic has been here. It's just we haven't been aware, and it's great to see people asking questions. Always ask questions. It's about problem solving. And the only way we get to understand more, we have to ask questions. We have to be keen to understanding and actually wanting to know more. So I'm excited about that shift in consciousness on this planet.
Me too. And the mindfulness, I don't know if this shows, I don't think it will. It won't, maybe, kind of.
A
It's
little
thinking
bit,
about
kind
it.
of. Yeah.
Mindfulness playbook. It's kind of there,
Hmm.
but I got to
Yeah.
get actual hard copy. That was kind of my
Yes.
thought before this interview.
Yes.
So just have to
Yes.
order one and get one. So
It's not out yet. It's not out yet. It's not
oh,
out yet.
whoops. You know what? I can only be so perfect with research. It was like the end of it before this interview, and I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Well, I had to plug this in. Cool. Well, I mean, when it comes out, I'm gonna have a hard copy.
Yes. Yes.
What is it's? It says 8 strategies for winning the game of life.
Yes.
Wow, this is gonna be really, really, really beautiful to read.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm excited about that book. It's a codified way of living life. Codes work. They've been proven. That's why we have the various codes that when you talk about building anything, we have codes that we go to. And so these go-tos begin to allow us to create the data. Data through meditation is the observer, observing your actions, observing how you function in the world, observing how your life has been going. And the idea is, how can we make it better? How can we be more efficient? How can we get more of what we desire? In the realm, in my opinion, and why I'm suggesting this is because a lot of the things that we're seeing happening on the planet is the malnourishment. Because you can't eat money. You know, what we do all the things to bring all these things in, whether it be cars, homes, for the idea that we can have love at some point in our lives. And a lot of that is unfortunately missing on this planet. So therefore, it creates a type of human that we see, the human in survival mode, the human that's in greed mode, and the idea of allowing that human to have more of the things that it needs, like we've been talking about during this quarantine process, the essentials, family, love, connectivity. These types of things begin to create and allow a new type of human with a new level of consciousness to be formed. And that's how, in my opinion, we shift this thing. We move into these directions of more what you're talking about, having a new tier of understanding of a politician that comes in not with the idea of greed, but simply to serve the community, to problem solve, to make it better. This is how, in my opinion, we cultivate that.
Yeah, it's when I read an article of I'm here in Cambria, California, Central Coast. This is where I've been living 8 years, and I read articles of the current governor Newsom, buying these multi-million-dollar property homes on a salary of what, 200,000, give or take.
Gifted to him. It was gifted to him. I read that this morning. Yes.
So I mean,
Right.
and this isn't the this is a very common thing, and I do see, again, the blockchain ledger is going to make it easy for people to see these sort of things in the future, and it will be on a decentralized platform, possibly shot up into space on a CubeSat. We'll see. I'm just kind of learning about all that through the Cantrells. Colin Cantrell of Nexus, and his dad, Jim Cantrell, was a co-founder of SpaceX and all. Hope to have him on too. Will, I'm sure. And so it's just I do see that coming in the future, what you're speaking of, and the sort of candidates like Newsom, as the light shines, they're just going to scatter and disappear. Like, we don't, people have ill will towards, like you said, the current president. I'm with you. We've had this in the past. It doesn't make it any better. And I don't know. I'm just so in the future right now, and it's playing a role, and
Right.
I'm focusing on the good. Again, people are
No,
more involved
no.
than ever, and he's an outsider, got elected. And people close to him have told me deep down he wants to be liked, which is an
Yeah.
interesting, whether it's hurt or this or that. But yeah, if people weren't so troubled about some previous presidents, this is nothing new. This doesn't even sway me. I'm
Right.
just so in the future of, the kind of beautiful people rising. And
Yeah.
when people tell me, "Hey, you're political, Christina," I'm like, "Well, politics isn't everything we do." And
Yes, it should.
honestly, electoral reform, it's been cool learning a lot about ballot access and opening up the commission, the presidential debates, and learning about voting machines and gerrymandering. But man, I'm way more excited to go into the evolution and learning stuff from you and quantum physics, and like just really, really, that's where my heart and passion, and more into arts and design than
No,
politics. But
I
we
totally,
gotta we gotta play our roles. This is our
and your
duty.
role is so key. It's a role, in my opinion. I was reading something the other day. It's like God plays the various roles, and not trying to say God in a religious political sense, but just God as it manifests through us as humans. So we need that mindset, that creativity that you bring, and I think we all have it to a certain level. But the distractions, we're in this container, and they it's like that 1% that wants to keep control. They have us bickering over little things like, okay, you're this color, you have this preference that you want to love, and you do this, you look like this, you wear green clothes, and things. It's like this ridiculousness, and those distractions are just crumbs that we're fighting over. But if we ever came to an understanding that, oh, listen, this is nonsense, and to think somewhat logical. See, this is why they do it, in my opinion, because when we come to this understanding, now our attention goes to like like you mentioned, the governor of California with that in 2019 getting that $3.7 million estate. Our attention goes to that. And there's an article today about something with $1 billion wire to China with the mask situation there too. I don't know if you saw that article, but I'll text it to you. But things like that, our attention will go there. For the most part, a lot of Americans, in my opinion, we haven't really dove in deep like what you've done. We haven't dove into like really what our political mechanism is really about, what the medical industry is about, you know. But when you go into the numbers and you see it, people have been dying of millions of people have been dying of a flu every year. Millions of people have been dying over pneumonia. These simple things. 350 million people die daily on the planet. And so these numbers begin to not be so alarming, but we begin to dissect these numbers. And then we begin to also, well, what are we eating? What is the food? What food is making us do this? What environment do we have that's making this happen for us? So we begin to really go into the depths of this. See, we're just a lot of us on the surface, like dealing with this, But we got when my mother, like I mentioned, my mother with 14 million women are diagnosed per year with breast cancer. 7 million die per year. What's going on? It's like, see, when our attention goes from those crumbs that we're fighting over to like the real stuff, they don't want that. That's the shift right there. And it's our focus, it's our attention. It's a game changer.
And it's whether it's the food, your mom's generation of what they ate, and right into Monsanto and GMOs, into like right now these really strong towers. I'm
Mm-hmm.
open-minded, learning about
Yeah,
5G and all.
yeah,
And I have electronic mag EMF absorbers on all of my I'm like
yes,
all about
EMF, yes,
absorbing green
yeah,
wave, next to my modems, just absorbing those electronic magnetic frequencies, and so on. So but yeah, I think a lot of it's the repercussions of that. But
mm-hmm.
it's a lot of needless negativity, needless harm, needless death happening. And I do foresee that becoming far and far less in the future. But in order for that to happen, it's going to be time for us to rise together. The Natalie Rise
Yeah,
musician, I love her song, with rising
mm-hmm.
together and one nation. And when you brought up them being the 1%, I listened to Diptonic Crew a really awesome reggae band. They're one of the openers for the Wailers, Bob Marley and the
Mm-hmm.
Wailers down at Austin Reggae Fest, and they have a song saying, "We are the 99%, they are the
Mm-hmm.
1%,"
Yes.
and the words of like, what is it? They says, uh, we are the 99%, they are the 1%. Uh, we don't really, they are the ones that need us. We don't really
Mm-hmm.
need them. Like,
Exactly.
and it's true. The
Yeah.
system needs us to be isolated, to be
Yes.
controlled, to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And the timing of this coronavirus, oh my gosh, Keith, years ago, the creators of some large social media pages, anti-media, free thought, project and more were like, when they started getting censored, it was right at the time when vaccines were being pushed back. People were
Mm-hmm.
like, vaccines are not good. It was
Right.
that moment on social media. Remember that? Suddenly
Yeah,
all
I
these
do.
pages start deleting, the censorship, just the money. They told me they had never seen so much money pushed into social media to block, to censor, to delete them in order to
Wow.
push this is interesting. Again, first time I've ever spoken about this like publicly, but what insight, and here we are full circle into what's happening now. And we
Mm-hmm.
saw the doctor yesterday on hydrochloroquine. I can say that I was very sick with a cough for 5 weeks in March after we did our presidential debate before the
Mm-hmm.
primary. We had 19 candidates there. And I couldn't shake it off. I took azithromycin, I did the antibiotics, I went into the essential oils of thyme, oregano, and at 5 weeks or so, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to kick this out because
Mm-hmm.
I was getting worried. I'm like, is this something I'm going to have for life? Like it was, and I don't usually, and then I got the hydrochloroquine and the zinc
Mm-hmm.
sulfate gone in 3 days,
Wow.
like crazy. So, I mean, I
Wow.
don't, I'm not a doctor, but I can say from firsthand experience, I don't know what I had, but I know it was something I had never experienced before. And
Right.
take my vitamin C every day. I don't, I don't lighten up on that, but it's
Yeah.
just interesting, having, again, I'm not spoken of that publicly, but it worked for me. I can say that
Yeah.
firsthand
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Getting the, I think that getting the understanding of how your body works, how to nurture yourself is mandatory.
mhm.
And that's one of the shifts that really learned the most when I started working with Dr. Sabi, learning learning foods and eating foods with substance. You know, uh,
Yes.
and this is why I'm so convinced that you begin to change the chemistry of that human when you give them a full food. You give them and we don't even know the consequences of a lot of this food that they've prescribed to be healthy for us. So it's like, but it's like it just began to be as I dove deeper into it, uh, so so on time and so needed to like understand what food do I need to fuel my consciousness? What food do I need to have the vitality that I want to age with, transition with, heal with? And it's mandatory that we know. We have to demand that we know. Um, and a lot of this that they're serving and saying that this is okay is not okay. It's not. So it's a
Well,
discovery.
Well, the hour flew by. Here we
Hmm.
are, and
Yeah.
people. When do you have an idea of when your book's going to come out? It's kind of an unknown with everything, too. You know?
Well, I believe in about 60 days. We
Yeah.
have some collaborations with some people that are coming in on board to promote it, and so we're letting all that go through its channels, and it's exciting. The first chapter is define your words because again, the words have been defined for us, and so we take on an unnecessary burden, an unnecessary conditioning that's not ours, and we're to make words that are tools that's going to be more productive in our lives in all aspects of how we see the world, and particularly how we see ourselves. So I'm so excited to see people dive into that. It's also going to be on Audible, so as well. So even if you don't want to read it, you can like listen to it.
Well, it looks like people can go to keithmitchell59.com if they want to
That's right. Yes.
check. I'm going to buy a book. So, Well, as soon as
Thank you.
heck yeah, I'll be reading it here from Cambria, and you're welcome to come up here when the stars align. We are
Yes.
moving forward with kicking off the United We Stand tour. I think we have 4 stops, and I think there's only like 6 festivals total happening this fall, and we're 4 of them. Um,
Wow. That's
we
great.
see right through it, and we'll take it a
Mhm.
day at a time. But if it comes down to just artists and core team volunteers and high level production, where we produce the stage and live time with a very modest crowd, that's what we'll do, and bring that to the people,
I love it.
because
I love it.
yeah. So Jessica will send you more information, and we can plug you in. You mentioned, I'm simply the visionary of Freeney Collections, but the goal is one day for this platform to be put on a decentralized, platform. I guess for this idea to be put on a decentralized platform, and it's for the people, and it's really
Yes.
up to we the people to build it. So thanks to you
Yes.
and John Nash and DJ and X and all the people who've been on our stage, Kamani Marley to Flowbots to Chuck D,
Hmm.
Public Enemy,
Yeah.
Mortal Technique, Jahi. I mean, the list goes on and on. Thanks to
Hmm.
all of you for believing. And we did have a little bit of a hit from the system back in 2014, but we won the lawsuit against UCLA. They breached the contract. The win was more important than the money for free and equal
Hmm.
elections to clear the reputation. So we welcome
Nice.
everybody to hop back on board and build it. So Keith, thank you for all the beautiful stuff you do. Enjoy Mexico.
Yes,
Mexico.
I will. I will.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy
Thank you
you're
for
out
having me.
there.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. And we'll have you on again for some yoga and meditation and mindfulness.
Sounds great.
So,
Sounds great.
all
Thank
right.
you so
What an
much.
honor. All right. Much
Thank
love.
you. Much
Bye
love. Bye.
bye.